This is a work in progress. It doesn't have a title. Basquiat shoes and well-groomed pet. This pen ink flows all too willingly. I'm not jealous, but you want me to be. Awkward in the corner, she avoided using pronouns. That moment of slippage you interpret. But I call everyone Mr. Lady, if only to confuse the darker spaces, the tribal impulses. We squint into the glare of living energy, left behind the signals of lonely motif, and snatching the words right out of their stale mouths, running through the day, hastily thrown together, hastily piled up, and dangling near your face, I left him wondering about the level of intimacy, about the intention, and your fantasy. I did what you wanted me to do. You're asking, I'm retreating. So I'm just kind of reading a variety of things from various different stages of completeness. This is from a project that I did last year where I wrote a letter to a friend every day for a month, and then I compiled them all into a book, and I erased most of the letters and created one long poem out of them, and this is one section of that from one letter. Thoughts starting distance. Distance becomes stillness. Sorry things so difficult, whatever revelation, nauseous until now. I've not been simply trembling myself, dramatic bones reach across the distance, fully swelled to know it. Sounds hollow. Maybe painting proceeding until the short diagonal / transfer, divide and place each in the center of a prepared pan. If using 15 minutes before, if using, flatten each. If using, without springing back, flatten easily and place in draft-free place. In the beginning, the beauty of this place is the fact that we are owners, with a few rotations, the fact that existence was lost. Large-scale production, uniform in flavor, and making an informed decision about eating, about consumers. The smooth, pale gold interior, going by there are people willing, waiting to come in. Demand grows, is dark brown and sounds hollow. I wasn't sure if I was going to read this, but then Sean made that comment about us being the future of literature. So this is a letter that I wrote to literature a few years ago that was kind of cheeky, and I thought it was funny to bring it, and I might have read it. Dear literature, for my peers and I, you have loomed as a monolith in our collective horizon for longer than we have known you to be there. Once discovered your presence, we created a potential goal, however vague and intangible. We read, we wrote, we read, we write. Our vague goal of literature was not necessarily a conscious one. My motivation is usually my need to write. Then maybe the pulling away from that goal was a natural progression. What we are doing here is not working toward integration into the monolith. I have seen no evidence of that in the work of my peers and in the talking about the work of my peers. So, my dear literature, we are creating monsters to devour you. But why, you ask? Well, this exhausting pursuit of the monstrous is done for the simple sake of change, a clearing of space for the arrival of a new paradigm of understanding, authorship, or writing. Literature is the looming monolith, has no place in the new space we are creating. There is one thing that I have learned from working with my peers that has overshadowed everything else, and that is that each of us has a distinct and unique outlook and position as a writer. These multiple perspectives and values do not make for an easy fit into that monolith that has hitherto left many experiential perspectives and many raucous voices outside of its body. Literature is a product of language's relentless grip on the human life, making literature a kind of self-referential language, a language that talks about itself. This self-referential quality of literature stems from the incubation of convention, cross-pollination of beings, which ultimately unfolds into definition, humanity's need to understand the medium, which they themselves find utterly dependent on. I believe that my peers find this dependency stifling. We are looking for more freedom, more movement. Our unique positions are not fixed. They seem to be constantly changing according to whatever influences come in and out of our lives. They also seem to be infinitely connected to each other at various moving points. These connections are made by coming together. I see a wild playfulness in the language of my peers. They are beginning to push the boundaries of not only new literature, but the boundaries they have previously set for themselves. New forms emerge from voices forged in unique perspectives. If it is true that literature has had ideological, at least conservative, perhaps oppressive force, it nevertheless maintains the potential as a particular signifying practice for subversive force. Curtis White, Cultural Studies and Athletic. I see the movements that my peers and I are making as that subversive force. We recognize the failure of language as it stands right now to adequately convey our thoughts, ideas, experiences, or true voices, but instead of allowing that discovery to crush our expression, it drives us forward, compelling us each. I can't go on, I'll go on. I guess this is goodbye literature. It's not you, it's me. Well, actually, it's you. Please don't call. It will only make this harder. It won't hurt forever. Our monsters will eat you up sooner or later. Sincerely ours, the future. This is another work in progress, and it's called For Frank right now. It might be called something else later. Could pick up the phone, but dashed off the poem instead. Plain language says, the poet is still stifled, on time to the date, but never to work. It's not about anything or anything. I mean, it is, but it doesn't matter if you know it or not. He doesn't take it seriously. He doesn't take it. Plain language says it better than the obscure poet of incomprehensible gesture, never to work. It's not about anything or anything. I mean, I could pick up the phone, but instead dashed off the poem. I've been working on a series of poems where I'm taking magazine articles and putting them through various different procedural exercises and then working with the language that I have there. This is from last year's New Yorker. Received the Canadian series, one feeling, and his paper undergone it. Globe always a sort of difference. They were only one moment of the joke. Panic was usual. This follows along a memory of paint. I found police and nothing Greek that his days kept, if suddenly to behave. The normal book was unintelligible, looking and a way into the emergency at an undergone suspicion that affected the interview. He was to other and not hospital. He had the visual field and these noted objects as exotic, withholding an apple by sniffing or squeezing. He often forgot and became shy. He wrote, lest the Prime Minister, Hamlet, surprised him.